Hello, this is Pasquale here, and today I'm going to be making the first video of the benzodiazepine collection. Anyways, today I'm going to start by saying a little bit about how benzodiazepines work, and I'm going to be talking to either the newcomers, people who have very little bit experience on benzodiazepines, and I'm going to try and explain how they work for this particular audience, and also for the audience who has a little bit more familiarity with benzodiazepines. Now, benzodiazepines belong to a drug class called depressants. They are minor tranquilizers, and you can compare it to alcohol. Benzodiazepines actions come from something called GABA, spelled G-A-B-A, and GABA stands short for gamma-aminobutyric acid. Now, this is basically the chief neurotransmitter of the rest, because you basically have 4 neurotransmitters, and the chief being the GABA. Now, the other 3 would be serotonin, and GABA works, and when I say it works as a police officer, it's because it's an inhibitory neurotransmitter. It basically keeps the other neurotransmitters calm. And for example, serotonin, it works on its receptors, which are 5-HT2, 5-HT3, and so on and so forth. HT meaning hydroxytryptamine. Now, the other neurotransmitter that GABA protects or inhibits would be dopamine and its receptors, which are D1, D2, D3, D4, and D5, D standing for dopamine. And the third one, and this is a big one because this is the one that causes the worst withdrawal symptoms, would be epinephrine, which basically is a fancy word for adrenaline. So when you have enough GABA, natural GABA, all these other neurotransmitters work smoothly. Now, a person who is anxious, the popular belief of chemical imbalances in the brain is that you don't have enough GABA inhibiting these other neurotransmitters. But let's not focus on that today. We're just going to focus on the actions of benzodiazepines. Now, benzodiazepines, like I said, when you introduce these to your system, to your body, you're artificially creating more GABA inside these synapses of each of these neurotransmitters. So, the more benzodiazepines that you take, the more calm you feel because of its inhibitory effect that it has on your brain. Now, the problem here that happens is something called downregulation. Downregulation is a process where basically your brain says, okay, I'm receiving too much artificial GABA by the benzodiazepines, so I'm going to stop creating it naturally. So your brain all of a sudden stops creating it, and you're taking artificial GABA at the synapse level by taking benzodiazepines. And this is where something that is called tolerance becomes very apparent. While your brain stops producing GABA, or starts, naturally, your brain, or the GABA you're artificially creating, no longer creates enough. So you need to take more medication, or double the medication that you're taking, to create the same effect that you used to have. And remember, you no longer have the help from the brain because it already went to a downregulatory process. Now, sorry. So when you reach tolerance, you're going downhill basically. Now you have to take more and more and more to create the same effect. And this is one downside of taking benzodiazepines, that you'll come to a point where you can take as much as you want and it won't make an effect at all. And you have the other downside where your brain is not producing it anymore. So this is why it's important to come off these medications, specifically benzodiazepines, to come off slowly, because you have the chance of, if you do come off quick, you have the chance of creating a shock in all your synapses and that these neurotransmitters work on. Because once you stop taking these benzodiazepines, you're basically not, there's no police at the synapse level calming these other neurotransmitters that are firing like crazy, because your brain's not producing it and you're not artificially introducing it with benzodiazepines. So this is where the withdrawal symptoms appear, and it's because of the firing of the adrenaline, the firing of the dopamine, and the firing of the serotonin. Serotonin affects mood, affects sleep, affects your eating pattern. Dopamine affects basically your pleasures. Adrenaline, most people are familiar with adrenaline. It affects your blood pressure, it affects your heart, how your muscles, and affects your breathing. And this is where once all these other transmitters are not being calmed down, these are firing, and this is where the withdrawal symptoms appear. Now, the ideal way of coming off benzodiazepines is to minimize the effect that all these other neurotransmitters are going to have once you eliminate the benzodiazepines or the GABA. So if you take a benzodiazepine that is short or has a very short half-life, for example, Xanax, Ativan, you have better chances to have a withdrawal syndrome that is less potent by crossing over to benzodiazepines that has a higher short half-life, like Valium. Its generic name being diazepam, and I think clonazepam you can consider benzodiazepines, although I think it has a medium half-life, because the longer the half-life, the longer it stays in your system, and the shorter of a shock your system is going to receive when you come off these medications. So coming off slowly with a benzodiazepine that has a longer half-life is the best way to go, because your brain is not going to go into that shock. And you also are minimizing your risk of developing protracted withdrawals. Protracted withdrawals basically means withdrawals that last 6 months or longer. It could last years. Now, I'm going to leave it at that. That is just the basics of how benzodiazepines work. If you have any questions, you can leave them on either wherever you watch this video, and you can email me, like I said, through any of my contacts, which contact information through Facebook, MSN. I'm going to set a Twitter account soon, and I'm going to leave it at that, like I said, and hopefully you guys can get a little bit of a grasp of how this works. And I'll be making more videos later on about specific things like the half-life of benzodiazepines and tolerance and withdrawal symptoms and whatnot. So take care and peace. Bye.